While food prices are on the rise, consumers are actively pursuing special offers and more affordable replacements for their usual products. Statistics Canada's latest inflation report shows food prices have risen 11.4% this year, the fastest price increase in Canada in the last 40 years.
Food is a non-negotiable essential that every citizen must pay for every single day. It's no secret that inflation is impacting Canada, but food inflation is even worse compared to the overall economic downturn in the country. The thing about food is that you must have it to survive, forcing people to increase their spending. In this video, we'll cover what is causing the unrelenting food inflation and how it's bad news for Canadians and the Canadian economy. In recent times, Canada has been gripped by an alarming surge in food prices. It's a disconcerting truth that the ever-escalating cost of food is now the foremost worry on the minds of Canadians. What's even more troubling is the paradoxical trend. Canadians find themselves shelling out more money for essential food items like fresh produce, meat, and dairy, while dramatically reducing their overall food consumption. This change in consumer behavior is a direct response to a staggering increase in grocery prices, which have soared to unprecedented heights, making February's figures particularly chilling. These prices have skyrocketed by a staggering 11.4% year over year, which is more than double the current overall inflation rate of 5.2%. The Canadian food price conundrum is a complex issue, influenced by a multitude of factors.
Charles Keddy is doing his best to get his strawberry plants in the ground, but there's not much activity in his fields these days. His employees, temporary foreign workers, are quarantined in their bunkhouses and can't work for 2 weeks.
One of the principal culprits behind the mounting food prices in Canada is the intricate web of supply chain issues that have plagued the nation. The pandemic, a global disruptor of unprecedented magnitude, has worsened these issues. The effects of lockdowns, restrictions, and logistical hurdles are still conspiring to create bottlenecks in the transportation and distribution of food products. The result is a shortage of essential items and spiking prices as demand for these goods consistently outpaces the available supply. The second culprit of the surging food prices is Canada's earnest efforts to combat climate change. The implementation of the carbon tax has added an unexpected layer of complexity to the food price crisis. The carbon tax levies additional costs on businesses and industries that emit greenhouse gases. Unfortunately, the energy-intensive food production industry, particularly meat and dairy, is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Consequently, these sectors have experienced higher production costs due to the carbon tax. These costs are often passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. The third contributor to the surging food prices in Canada is the lack of competition among grocery stores. The lack of competing grocery companies makes it easy for grocery stores to charge Canadians what they want, leaving customers with no alternatives. In an economy with high levels of competition, companies are forced to compete for their customers' business by offering lower prices to attract buyers. When there are few competitors in the economy, it makes it easier for companies to raise their prices rather than forcing them to lower their prices. Canada's food industry is dominated by Loblaws, Metro, and Sobeys, creating an oligopoly that has no need to offer lower prices. This has led to the prevailing perception of greed among food retailers. While it's undoubtedly essential for businesses to maintain profitability, a thin line separates reasonable profit margins from what appears to be the exploitation of consumers during these trying times. Many consumers harbor suspicions that certain retailers are capitalizing on the food price inflation to maximize their profits, even at the expense of ordinary Canadians. For example, a recent report by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives found that the top 5 grocery retailers in Canada increased their profits by 39% in 2020, while paying out $5 billion in dividends to shareholders. The report also revealed that these retailers paid their workers an average of $16.69 per hour, which is below the living wage in most Canadian cities. Another example of the greed among food retailers is the Great Canadian Bread Food Pricing Scandal, which Metro, Loblaws, and Sobeys all participated in. This price-fixing scheme lasted for an estimated 14 to 16 years, where $1.50 was added to the price of every single loaf of bread. In June of this year, Canada Bread pled guilty to the scandal and was fined $50 million, the highest fine for a fixing scandal in Canadian history.
I think that the food industry is experiencing a consumer trust crisis in light of what happened last week. I know a lot of people are caught up with the $50 million fine paid by Canada Bread, But Canada Bread Links is linked to Maple Leaf Foods, and there is an email out there suggesting that perhaps the bread scandal is not just about bread. We actually believe that the food industry has a price-fixing culture problem.
Many people are feeling cheated and exploited by the retailers, and they are losing faith in the food industry. Some people are boycotting, protesting, or even attacking the stores of the greedy retailers. The retailers are facing criticism and pressure from the public, the media, and the government, and they are risking their reputation and market share. The response of Canadian consumers to this price surge is one of decreased faith in their government and in the food industry. Faced with the skyrocketing costs of groceries, Canadians have been forced to transform their buying habits to navigate these challenging circumstances. The Nielsen IQ survey paints a vivid picture of how Canadian consumers are altering their buying habits in response to the soaring food prices. In a bid to manage their budgets more effectively, many are opting to purchase less food overall. This strategic shift allows them to meet their essential needs while trimming down on non-essentials. Most Canadians now don't even have the luxury to buy non-essential food and grocery items. Approximately 43% of Canadians, as revealed by the survey, have adopted a new survival tactic in these trying times, sticking to a budget when it comes to spending. As the relentless rise of food prices continues, Statistics Canada also highlighted trends in consumer behavior, a shift away from traditional food and beverage stores to more cost-effective general merchandisers.
The unrelenting costs at grocery giants are prompting price-conscious shoppers to fill their carts elsewhere, turning to dollar store chains and less conventional options.
The increasing cost of food is adding more pressure to the already difficult situation of many Canadians. They already have to deal with the high prices of other necessities such as housing, healthcare, and transportation. They have to make tough choices and make sacrifices every day as they cannot afford everything they need. For instance, some Canadians have to reduce their food intake and suffer from hunger and malnutrition in order to pay their rent or mortgage. Others have to skip their medication or doctor's appointments, which can worsen their health conditions in order to buy enough food for themselves and their families. Still, others have to give up their car for public transit, which can limit their mobility and access to opportunities in order to save money for food. These are some of the impossible scenarios that many Canadians are facing, and it's neither fair nor sustainable. This food price crisis has placed an extraordinary economic strain on Canadian households. Families and individuals now find themselves allocating a significantly larger portion of their budgets to securing basic food necessities. Consequently, there is less room for discretionary spending and emergencies, a situation that is affecting the overall quality of life for many Canadians. Rising food prices are not merely an economic concern, they also raise distressing questions about food security. Vulnerable populations, particularly those with limited financial means such as the elderly, disabled, and low-income households, face the greatest jeopardy. As the cost of food continues its relentless ascent, low-income households will find it increasingly challenging to access affordable meals. The surge in food prices contributes to broader inflationary pressures that ripple through the Canadian economy. As the cost of goods and services rises across various sectors, the purchasing power of consumers diminishes. This inflationary burden is having a cascading effect, affecting savings, investments, and overall economic stability. The result is a domino effect that is disrupting the whole system. As more and more of everyday Canadians' budgets are being eaten up by the cost of food, it further exacerbates the cost of living crisis that Canada is grappling with today. While wages aren't able to keep up with rising costs of food, housing, and fuel, it drives more and more people into poverty. What happens when the cost of food is so high that people begin to starve? Canada isn't there yet, but hopefully we don't get to find out the answer to that question. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the price for food will start to come down significantly anytime soon. Regardless of what happens, this we do know for sure, that Canadians will continue to pay an arm and a leg just to survive through this food price crisis. To learn more about how this food price crisis is contributing to the cost of living crisis, click on this video here. And if this video brought value to you today, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.